What is up, Duelists? Arts and Crafts here, back again with your daily dose of Yu-Gi-Oh! GOAT format action. Today's feature match, we've got Herney Hog versus Vive Cristo, aka El Duelist of Pokédex, both players that have been featured on this channel many times in the past, which makes sense because they're two of the top players in the format in the year 2025. Now, I don't actually think that this was a ranked match, but it is one that I caught the replay of. I believe it was unrated. Not sure if they were just having a friendly match testing some stuff out, or if it was like there was like a cash tournament that was put on this weekend, so maybe it could have been for that. But either way, two top players who I caught the replay of, so we're going to make that today's feature match. Looks like Herney Hog here is going to be going first, and they're going to lead out with Pot of Greed, so already going up a card here very early on. Solid opening into Thunder Dragon as well, so Herney Hog, definitely a Chaos Turbo enthusiast, so would not be surprised to just see them rocking that list, especially if this is that cash tournament that's been going on. I guess it could also even be War League. I haven't checked the pairings for this week, but technically it could be that as well. And then Herney Hog is just going to go with a little T-set pass. So still a solid opening. Pot into TD into T-set pass is definitely something to fear. We'll see what Vive Cristo can do here. We're going to get Insta Trap Dust Shoot here in the standby phase, so we'll get to see what both players are rocking. And yeah, Herney Hog, as expected, seems to just be running Chaos Turbo. Pretty standard hand here, double Thunder Dragon that's known. Serpent, Sangan, Faith, Knock. So, Faith in hand to potentially threaten to grab this pot later on, of course, as well as Sangan and Serp to maybe bait that out if they choose. Knock to even get more aggressive in the future if they want as well. And they see Vive Cristo's hand is actually blanking Dust Shoot here. No monsters. Looks like they are playing Warrior here. This is a pretty standard Warrior hand. Rhoda, Dust Shoot, Premature, Torrential, Jar, and MST are all cards that Warrior plays. So we might have a little bit of Turbo versus Warrior action today. But the early card advantage from that Pot of Greed is now going to be nullified slightly by this Trap Dust Shoot whiffing. However, Herney Hog will have full information, right? So that is still a good amount of value here from this Trap Dust Shoot. You're going to know, I mean, essentially 4 cards that your opponent will have. I mean, the Dust Shoot's going to come through either way. So really, what you're going to know about Torrential, you're going to know about Premature, and you're going to know about MST. So still some solid value there. Vive Cristo likely to just fire off the reinforcement of the army here. They're going to grab Mystic Swordsman level 2. Great way of dealing with these set monsters. We know Herney Hog has Sangan and Serp in their hand, so this will definitely be hitting a real set monster. Vive Cristo, of course, doesn't know that, but this would be a pretty standard play regardless. Let's see what they pop here. It's going to be a Gravekeeper Spy. All right, so Herney Hog setting up for an early aggressive play here with Spy with a potential knock to banish whatever Vive Cristo might have played. However, Spy is going to meet its demise at the hand of Mystic Swordsman, and Vive Cristo, despite being, facing down a Pot TD Dust Shoot opening, has actually found themselves in a pretty good spot here with the Whiff Dust Shoot and this Mystic Swordsman plussing. So advantage early on to the Warrior player. Gonna set a couple back row. Gotta assume one is Jog, one is Dust Shoot, and then the last one, probably the MST, although it could be the Torrential if you want to just kind of switch things up. Herney Hog here going to draw for turn, get the Instant Trap Dust Shoot, of course. We'll see what Herney Hog drew for turn. Looks like they drew a Chaos Sorcerer, which is live, so actually would not be surprised to just see that be the card that's sent back. Yeah, Magician Faith, not a big deal when you have the Mystic Swordsman to deal with it. Sangan's not really doing too much as well, so yeah, I think you just have to send back the Sork. And then Herney Hog's plays are pretty limited at this point in time. I mean, I guess you could just go... You could attempt to go Sangan, beat over the Mystic Swordsman. That's probably your best play right now. There is still Premature Burial to bring it back in the future, but that seems like a decent play. And that's exactly what we'll see. Sangan beat over the Mystic Swordsman. So recuperating that plus from the Spy getting killed. So Herney Hog's still in a decent spot, and they have the Sangan to continue to pressure. Vive Cristo just going to fire off that Jar, draw a little bit deeper into the deck, into another copy of Reinforcement of the Army, so seeing both quite early on to search up the perfect monster for both of these scenarios. Likely, I mean, DD Warrior Lady is probably pretty good right now, just to banish the Sangan, especially because it's really the only thing that Herney Hog has going for them at this point in time. Besides the Magician of Faith, but Vive Cristo has Premature for the Mystic Swordsman, for example, if they ever need that. Let's see what we're going to grab with the Rota, though. It is going to be DD Warrior Lady. Yeah, just play it safe. Keep the Sangan off the board. Nice little 1-for-1 trade. Oh, no effect. Okay, we're going to go DD Warrior Lady. Kill the Sangan. And I guess the idea here being, what are Herney Hug's options off of this Sangan? Right. We know they can't grab Sinister. That's already in hand. They can grab Tsukuyomi. So getting a Tsukuyomi-proof threat is pretty nice. Herney Hug does have Suk plus Knock if they want to go that route, but that's not the end of the world for Vive Cristo if they choose to go for that play. And then any of the set monsters that you could grab, like a Dekoichi, a Spy, another Faith, you have Premature for the Mystic Swordsman to deal with. So DD Warrior Lady kind of covers all of the Sangan's options here, even without banishing it. So you're totally fine just killing the Sangan, keeping this threat around, despite it not actually getting you, or despite it letting the Sangan float. They're going to grab the Tsukuyomi, so Herney Hug does have Suk plus Knock available to them. I think that's probably the right call. Suk is just generally a very good card against Warrior, even if it doesn't match up particularly well against DD Warrior Lady. And it does turn on the Knock in your hand, which is generally pretty dead in this matchup, at least in game 1. And then we're just going to add a couple more back row. Ooh, a bunch of back row. So Vive Cristo potentially drew a Solemn at some point. So going to set their whole hand. We know Premature is one of the set cards, as well as Torrential. But besides that, I think we've got 2 unknowns, but one of them likely to be a Solemn. Herney Hog, are you going to answer the DD Warrior Lady now, or just kind of try and wall it out with like Serpent or something? We're gonna go for the Suk plus Knock play. We're just going to insta Torrential. Wow, so Vive Cristo is happy to just let themselves get 2 for 1. It's pretty interesting. Not sure if that was super duper necessary. And if the play was to do this, I feel like you probably just banish the Sangan so you don't go minus, right? That's kind of an odd play. A little sloppy, I feel like, unless I'm missing something. But yeah, Herney Hug is probably super happy about that, right? Viva Cristo does have Premature for it anyway, I guess, is the thought. But now you don't have an out to the like Magician of Faith potentially because your Premature is gone, unless you drew like Call the Haunted or something maybe. Okay, Blade Knight's going to come down as well, so this is a lot of damage coming through. So they are going to be able to push through and apply a lot of pressure. But Herney Hog up a good number of cards at this point, so if they can stabilize, it might be difficult for Vive Cristo to close this one out. Going to very much come down to tempo here for the last couple turns. Herney Hog, a lot of cards in hand, but all the ones we've seen so far do not out this particularly well. Just going to go T-set pass. Definitely the realm where you could just be bluff setting your knock or something here, so I wouldn't pay too much credence to this. Yeah, and we knew that the MST was there for the whole time as well. So Vive and Chris are just going to fire it off. Yeah, hitting the knock. I'd like to play out of Herney Hog. You might as well just get some value for it by trading with the known MST. And now if you have any back row in the future, it's a little bit better. But Vive Cristo here likely just going to continue to beat in. It is going to be the Magician of Faith, so Herney Hog is going to be able to resolve this Faith to grab Pot of Greed, which was kind of the major threat that I thought Vive Cristo was holding the Premature to deal with. But they're just going to allow this to go through. They will pass with lethal on board after this Blade Knight hits in, which is nice. And if they drew like Ring or something, it's probably just GG. But once again, we're at the point where if Vive Cristo can't kill Herney Hog in like the next turn or so, it's likely that, you know, with this pot activation incoming and just the fact that they're up so many cards, they'll probably be able to stabilize pretty easily. Now, Vive Cristo still has Ring left in deck, which could be the reach that they need to close out the game with Herney Hog at 2k. But, you know, if you haven't seen it yet, that's a 1 in 28 chance every time you draw. So, not super duper likely. Blade Knight will drop Herney Hog down to 2k, though, and will pass with lethal on board once again. Herney Hog here has Pot of Greed, of course, and that is going to resolve. I mean, I guess Solemn is the card here. But I feel like you probably need to use Solemn. You know what? Maybe going super aggressive here is correct when you have Solemn to deal with a potential answer to your board. But if Herney Hog has 2 answers, then it's just not going to look too hot, I guess, right? Pot will resolve. We're going to go slam down a Chaos Sorcerer. That is allowed. We're going to banish the DD Warrior Lady, which outs the Sork when the Blade Knight does not. So I definitely like that play. And then we're going to set a monster, set a back row pass. Now, Blade Knight is the only monster left on the board for Vive Cristo, so if this is an actual flip, it could just get killed. But then Blade Knight will just die to the Sork on the crackback, so it's not the end of the world. And this also could just be like Sinister Serpent or Sangan. Or no, I guess it can't be Sangan, but it could very well just be Sinister Serpent, right? Either way, Vive Cristo here, the worst fears are kind of coming true. Hernihog is able to survive, push back the damage, and now they're beginning to stabilize, so you really just need to find Ring or something, otherwise it's going to be really tough. Maybe Snatch Seal does it as well. We're going to knock the new set. Okay, it is a Gravekeeper Spy, so good to prevent that from resolving. Otherwise it would be really, really tough to deal the last 2,000 points of damage. And then we do have Snatch Steal as well. Okay, so Snatch coming through. This does represent lethal. Is this going to be it? And wow, Hernihog just doesn't have it. Wow, okay, so Vive Cristo, not sure if they had the Snatch Shield that whole time, or if they just got bailed out by it, but that was about to be a very, very sticky situation and saves it basically at the last possible moment. Hernihog just had no relevant back row, and Warrior's going to take down game one here, as it is kind of built to do. Hernihog likely has lots of good stuff in the side deck to bring in against this, but they're going to have to win 2 games in a row to close out this match, which is exactly what Warrior's game plan kind of is here. All right. So Hernihog will be able to go first here once again in game 2. They're going to lead out with Duo here, so let out with Pot as their Trinity last game. Didn't work out, so let's switch it up. Let's try a different Trinity piece. Still going to go up +1 most likely, but a little bit more aggressive of a card. Hitting Mirror Force is fine. Not the best card against Turbo, but I guess it's okay. And it makes sense, because Turbo often will bring in like Zombiras, right? So you want your battle traps for those. And then we're going to see Solemn Judgment hit the grave as well. Okay, so 2 traps ripped out of the hand here by the duo. A lot of information here for Hernihog to work with. They have Thunder Dragon here as well, thinning the deck once more. Very similar opening to game 1. But then we're going to follow up with a normal summon Zombira, so a little bit of the side deck stuff coming in here. In game 2, just a nice big wall, nice big way to control the board. Going to be tough for Vive Cristo to get around unless they have like Smashing Ground or maybe an Exiled Force. We're going to go MST the back row. Okay, hitting a Ring of Destruction, so nice 1-for-1 trade there. Do we have Exiled? Do we have Smashing Ground? It's going to be Rhoda for DD Assailant. Okay, so that's one way of dealing with the Zombira. That keeps them off Chaos. This is actually kind of neat. Sure, you take a little bit of damage, but who cares? But so if you went for the standard play, which would be Rhoda for Exiled, then you would pop the Zombira and turn Chaos on for Hernihog. Whereas DD Assailant allows you to basically do the same thing, but you keep the Dark out of the grave to turn Chaos off. So I like this kind of tech option in this matchup for exactly like this scenario. Can be kind of neat. We're going to get a little bit of utility here out of DD Assailant, which is always cool. Then we're just going to set a back row pass. Vive Cristo is still quite far behind, of course, thanks to that duo. But dealing with one of the more difficult cards in Turbo post side to deal with, so definitely still solid use of their cards there. Hernihog here has a good old T-set pass, so still keeping the pressure up. Vive Cristo is going to go set a monster of their own, so Warrior often does side into flips in games 2 and 3 against Turbo. He could be running Spies, could be running even Dekoichis, probably Faiths, or you could just be setting anything. Right, sometimes Warrior will just set stuff in case Turbo like left in their Nox or things like that, or just to kind of play some mind games. Let's see what Hernihog chose to sit here, though. Gonna go flip summon Gravekeeper Spy, so this is very, very nice for the Turbo player. Anytime Spy can resolve against Warrior, you're in a very good spot. Can summon out a defense mode Spy here. Yep, totally makes sense to me. Just get this big wall on the board. You can probably just try and poke in with the Spy. Can see a reason not to. Gonna set a back row before attacking here, which I actually think makes sense. Sometimes Warrior, a kind of relatively new development in the deck, is that they'll side in Morphing Jar post-side against Turbo, because, you know, it kind of makes sense from the perspective of Warrior is a deck that likes to just set their hand a bunch, so they will often find themselves in positions for Morphing Jar to get them value. Like, this would be exactly one of those. Or Morphing Jar would be a +4 for them, but only a +2 at this point for Hernihog. So Hernihog, you know, recognizing that that's an option here and sort of playing around it. Definitely makes sense. The set is just going to be a Magician of Faith. So not as backbreaking as a Morphing Jar, but still a solid card. Post side for Warrior. Rhoda would be nice if to bring out Ninja Grandmaster, right, to deal with these spies. So would not be surprised to see that be the card get grabbed. But we're going to grab the Mystical Space Typhoon, so maybe already has the Ninja Grandmaster in hand, or maybe has Tribe or something, and so would rather clear out the back row to go for a bigger play, perhaps. Interested to see exactly what they want to do here, though. Honey Hog just going to pass turn. Vive Cristo, let's see what the play is. We're going to go MST, one of the back row. It's Raigeki break, though, so Herny Hog going to chain, discard one of those Thunder Dragons in hand to pop the other back row. So in the end, it's just kind of like a 2-for-2 here. Oh, it's going to be Jar of Greed. Okay, nice play here out of Vive Cristo. Getting some extra value out of this MST, forcing out the Raigeki break. Herny Hog could have just let the Raigeki break die and have it be a nice 1-for-1, but they opted for going for the chain here at the last second, discarding a Thunder Dragon, and then actually just getting plussed here because the Jar of Greed will float. So nice play here for Vive Cristo. Getting a little bit back of an advantage here. You still have 2 spies to get through, which can be a tall task for a warrior that got hit by duo, but potentially has some options here. We're going to go with the Kaiku. Okay, so this can deal with 1 spy, but we'll end up just kind of being stalemated against the second one, assuming it can get through. It's going to go in and attack. That will be allowed, and then both Thunder Dragons will get banished out of the grave here. So this is a high-value Kaiku hit. Herny Hog's going to have to discard a Thunder Dragon in their hand if they want to get light on board. And the Kaiku Floodgate effect is definitely live right now. So pretty nice play here for Vive Cristo, getting a lot of value out of this Kaiku. They're going to pass turn. Still a little bit of a stalemate at the time being, though, sitting behind the spy. So Herny Hog, not really pressured to do anything exactly at this moment. But if the spy ever gets answered, they're going to be in a bit of trouble. We're going to go Rhoda here again. So do you want to go Exiled, play the safe route? Or do you want to go Ninja Grandmaster and try and go for big value? Either way, you're likely going to be connecting with Kaiku this turn. So maybe you just play... I mean, presumably this isn't a battle trap. Right? Because you probably battle trap this Kaiku last turn when it goes to kill your spy. So maybe you just send it if you're Vive Cristo. I guess it could be Torrential set. But, Exile plays into that anyway. So I feel like you can't really afford to play around Torrential at this point, so you might as well go for the Ninja Grandmaster, I guess, and go for the big play. Yeah. Vive Cristo is going to do it. Oh, we're thinking on the Rhoda activation. We're going to solemn the Rhoda to make sure the Ninja Grandmaster can't come down. Interesting. Okay, and yeah, I guess you want to do it before... Because you could just solemn the Ninja Grandmaster summon, right? But then that does get it in the grave if they have Premature or Call of the Haunted in the rotation somehow. So solemning the Rhoda is the safer play, so that they just don't have access to the Sasuke in any shape or form at the moment. And now you pay a lot of life for this, but you do maintain this stalemate, which could be nice. Vive Cristo now is free to activate a Graceful Charity, though, and maybe you just draw into your Ninja Grandmaster anyway. Going to discard Blade Knight and Duo? Okay. Discarding Duo is pretty big. You must have some really good stuff in hand. Exiled Force is going to come down. Okay, yeah, so keeping that over Duo definitely makes sense because, 2 random cards out of your opponent's hand is probably not worth being able to connect in with the Kaiku this turn and removing the spy. So I like this play. Interested to see what the last card they kept was. But Kaiku is going to come through, deal 1800, drop Herny Hog down very low, take them off of Dark's Engrave. Absolute miles away from Chaos now. And Vive Cristo gets to pass with Lethal on board, and an ace up their sleeve that they kept off this Graceful that they apparently liked more than Delinquent Duo. So is it like BLS? Is it Premature Burial? Interested to see exactly what that is. Herny Hog does have a good number of cards here. They're up a card plus the extra one from going first. So if you can deal with this Kaiku, you're in a decent spot. But we do know one of the cards in hand is a Thunder Dragon, so it's not totally real. But we're going to try to stabilize here on 1400 life. Similar scenario to last game where basically Herny Hog got dropped down to pretty low life. If they can stabilize from this point out, it'll probably be okay. But Vivier Crystal always has kind of the trump cards left of Ring and Snatch Steal, like we saw last game. Let's see, Zombira is going to come down. Very, very strong card to stabilize at this point in time. You can just beat over this Kaiku. We're going to fire card destruction as well, so cashing in that last Thunder Dragon. Interesting to see card destruction post-side in Turbo against Warrior. Generally not considered the best card because it's really, really bad post-Dust Shoot. But Viva Cristo hasn't resolved a single Dust Shoot all game yet. And oftentimes, kind of a warrior strategy that's been spreading a little bit more recently is actually taking your dust shoots out post side against turbo, especially like when you're going second, especially when the turbo player is on like the Solemn Zombira plan, because one of the reasons why you bring Solemn Judgment in as turbo against warrior, despite it not being very intuitive, I feel like, is because it allows you to set your hand and play around dust shoot, which is warrior's like key piece in the matchup. So the kind of counter side strategy to the Solemn Judgment plan out of Turbo is to just take out your Dust Shoots, and now they have these Solemn Judgments, which are kind of a double-edged sword against Warrior when they're not protecting you from Dust Shoots and Heavy Storms and things like that. So maybe keeping in card destruction against Warrior is a counter side to the counter side, where like if I'm bringing in Solemn Zombira and you expect the opponent to take out their Dust Shoots, suddenly card destruction might be a little bit better. Maybe that's what we're seeing here. And Herney Hog likely going to resolve a nice one here, being able to cash in their Thunder Dragon. Ooh, Sork hitting the grave, but that wasn't super live just yet. And the Kaiku Floodgate was around, so that's totally fine to ditch that one. It does set up Chaos in the future, of course, as well. And importantly, you knew that Vive Cristo held onto a card that to them was better than Duo after this Graceful Charity. Now, BLS, not entirely. I mean, I guess at this point in time, you do have a Dark on board. So BLS is pretty close, all things considered, to being live. And I guess, Duo could just like hit a Thunder Dragon. Like you're guaranteed to only really get a card's worth of value from the Duo because of the Thunder Dragon in hand. Not that you would expect your opponent to have card destruction, but maybe if you knew they had card D, Duo would have been a lot better. But yeah, holding on to this BLS and getting punished for it, unfortunately. And now Herney Hog is just going to be in a really good spot here. Going to see 2 fresh cards in hand. Zombira is going to beat over this Kaiku. Going to be up a bunch. And, ooh, we found Graceful Charity as well. That's pretty insane. See what we draw. Going to go ahead and discard a Tribe Infecting Virus and a Raigeki Break. So interesting. Having no discard fodder for the Graceful Charity, but using it for a little bit of filtration. I mean, I guess if you don't have any discard outlets, both of these cards against Warrior can be kind of subpar. So maybe help, keeping something a little bit better. Pot of Greed is definitely worth keeping. So this is an insane turn here for Herney Hog. We had the Zombira to deal with the Kaiku. We had the card destruction to discard the opponent's BLS. And then that drew us into Graceful plus Pot. So Herney Hog miles ahead here at this point in time. Battle Phase, kill the Kaiku, of course. And then set a back row to protect your Zombira potentially and pass. Really nice turn there. Vive Cristo, big mountain to climb here in game 2. Not out of it just yet. Only 1,400 points of damage left that they need to deal. Ring of Destruction still left in the deck. So it could happen, but it's going to be an uphill battle. Just going to set a back row pass. Show me the ring. We're going to Heavy Storm. It hit a Trap Dust Shoot. Okay, so getting a nice little 1-for-1 there for Herney Hog. Not going to mean too much if you don't have an extra monster to add to the board. Let's see. Okay, we do have an extra monster to add to the board, and it is Black Luster Soldier coming down, representing a big, big clock here. And yeah, Herney Hog just using their extra cards here to great advantage. Heavy Storm, simplify the game, stay clear at the back row. Make sure the coast is clear for BLS, and now you can start clocking your opponent. You have Zombira as backup as well. Tribe is gone. Or sorry, no, never mind. Herney Hog's Tribe is gone. Viva Cristo could have Tribe, which could really blow up this, but unlikely. And importantly, right, Herney Hog, even though it's unlikely for Viva Cristo to find Ring in the next turn or two, they will, given enough time, draw into Ring of Destruction. So you can't just rest on your laurels here, even though you're up a bunch of cards. You do need to apply pressure to Viva Cristo to close it out before they draw Ring. So yeah, I like going for this BLS, putting a big clock on the opponent, You do lose to Snatch Steal once again, which could be scary. But, oh, okay, maybe not anymore if you have a back row and a set monster. But we are in crunch time here for Vivek Cristo. DD Warrior Lady gonna come down. It's an out to BLS at least. Okay, you'll take 1,500 points of damage for the pleasure, but it is what it is. We're actually just gonna Saku the DD Warrior Lady, though, keeping the BLS on board. You would definitely rather lose your Saku compared to your BLS, so it definitely makes sense to me. And yeah, Vivek Cristo just conceding there. Totally fine. Yeah, BLS was just going to be too much to handle. And Ernie Hogg there, really solid gameplay there in game two, with some unconventional cards in the matchup, but using them to very, very solid effect there. And we will be heading over to game three. Vivek Cristo on this warrior list will be able to go first. We'll see if they maybe counteract some siding to what we saw Ernie Hogg bring in. We did see Vivek Cristo was on at least Magician of Faith in terms of flips post side, so maybe that'll change up how Ernie Hogg, configures their Nobleman of Crossouts and things like that. Could be interesting. Vivek Cristo is going to go first here, though, as previously mentioned. Going to lead out with a Pot of Greed, so finally their turn to open Trinity, putting themselves in a solid position. First time this match that they're going first, and just trying to close it out here in game three. We're going to go into set a monster and set 5 pass. A dreaded warrior opening. Ernie Hogg has to anticipate Trap Dust Shoot, Solemn Judgment, Dust Tornado, all these crazy things that could come through and just really simplify the game state down to a point where the warrior player will be very happy. Getting to main phase 1 with no Dust Shoot, though, is a bit of a win. Okay, no, we are going to Dust Shoot. Sure. Ernie Hogg here. Ooh, kind of a nice hand, but it's going to get kind of torn apart by Dust Shoot here. Tribe, Sangan, Thunder Dragon, and Magician of Faith, all the targets. MST and Solemn are like, okay at this point in time, but a lot worse when your opponent knows about them already. And MST is just going to be flying blind into 4 potential chainables, so definitely better going first against Warrior than going second. Vivek Cristo, what you send back here is really going to depend on what you have going on. Tribe is just always an annoying card against the deck. Same with Sangan, so it depends on which one you have a good answer to. Faith, I don't think you care about at this point in time. Doesn't really do much. MST, the only target. Thunder Dragon's just generally a good card to send back with Dust Shoot, so I could see them doing that if they're fine just having outs to Tribe and Sangan. So any of these 3 are all kind of realistic choices, depending on what the configuration here is at this point in time. It's going to be the Tribe Infecting Virus being sent back. Maybe signifies that Vivek Cristo is on a kind of a warrior specifically heavy hand, which Tribe is very good against, of course. But also just a card that makes sense to send back regardless. And now you know to play around MST and Solemn Judgment as well. All right, Ernie Hogg here going to fire with that Thunder Dragon, of course. Get a Light Engraved in the deck a little bit. And then do you just go like set Sangan or something? Just going to go set a monster and a back row. All right. Could be MST, could be Solemn, probably MST, but there's a world where you set either of them. I think both are fine. Vivek Cristo here has Breaker the Magical Warrior to come down, pop this back row. I guess you're hoping that it's Solemn. If it's MST, maybe it hits a chainable. So either way, this could be pretty nice for Vivek Cristo. We're going to go flip summon Kinetic Soldier here as well. All right, so interesting. Normally you would think Kinetic Soldier is an anti-warrior sideboard card, right? But it does out BLS and it does out Zambira. So I guess it does have some uses. Once again, kind of countering the turbo side by bringing in some stuff that's good against what they bring in. So you can see kind of the good intricacies of the turbo versus warrior match really on display here in this set of duels, because you can see both players kind of adjusting to what they see the other player doing and always keeping the opponent on their toes. And we're just going to go straight to battle phase here, saying, I don't care if it's Solemn or MST, because neither of them are going to stop me from beating in for damage, so I might as well get the extra 300 points of damage with the Breaker token before popping the set in main phase 2. That definitely makes sense to me. We're just going to go battle phase, MST, just to pop something, I guess, before the... This is interesting. You would think you would want to... Oh, you know what it is? They must have set the Magician of Faith, so they need to get a spell engrave immediately. Interesting play here. So the MST is going to get forced out, going to hit a Sakuretsu armor, not bad. And then we're going to see Magician of Faith get flipped up here to regrab that MST just to make sure it doesn't go to waste. And Breaker will be able to hit in for 19. So nice play there out of both players, making the best out of this kind of awkward situation. But now this Breaker token will stick around, so Herney Hog's Solemn Judgment suddenly looks really, really bad. Unless you can, find... I mean, I guess you can just go set both of them and then hope that they lose the 50-50 with the Breaker pop. Or you just wait till you draw like Ring or something, or some out to Breaker before you do that. Or you play some mind games and try to bluff. Interesting to see what Herney Hog might do in this situation. Kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. And Viva Cristo is applying a lot of pressure here with the Kinetic and the Breaker. Herney Hog going to draw for turn. It's going to go T-set pass, so is it MST? Is it Solemn? Is it something else? I mean, if you're setting something into the Breaker, it's probably going to be MST, but you can use that to your advantage. You're just going to get end phase MST anyway, not even going to play the game. We're just going to say, okay, gonna pop this. It is the MST, okay, so we know Solemn is still in hand. Breaker once again gets to save the token, continues to beat in. And Viva Cristo has to be happy with these proceedings. Up a card early on thanks to this pot, resolved a Dust Shoot, so they get to play with near perfect information. And now they're just applying tons of pressure and removing the back row every time it comes down to make sure that their aggression is safe. Just going to go straight to battle phase here. Kinetic will attack the set. It is Sangan, which will float, but won't get in the way of this Breaker coming in for 1900 once again. Very respectable clock here. Herney Hog, some options off of the Sangan search. Tsukiyomi deals with the Breaker while also getting rid of the token, which is kind of nice to free up some of your back row. It of course doesn't do anything against the Kinetic Soldier, really, but maybe it's worth it just to remove the token off the Breaker and potentially even kill it. Whereas, Sinister Serpent is generally just kind of a good card in the matchup. We're going to see the Spy come through. Okay, so we're going for just pure defense, just trying to wall out the Breaker and the Kinetic until you can stabilize. I definitely like that play. Herney Hog, they've gotten themselves into some sticky situations here through no fault of their own, but just the fact that early aggression from Vive Cristo has dropped them down to very, very low life points early on. So by the time that Herney Hog was up a bunch of cards and was able to stabilize, they still were in range of losing to the Rings and the Snatch Steals that we did see come through to make them lose game one. So I like playing a little bit more defensive here and saying, you know what, if I can just stick a Spy and stabilize, maybe it's 5,000 life points instead of 2,000. It'll be a lot safer of a game. So I can definitely understand going for this play and trying to buck the trends of this match. Even if you just won the last game, it was a little bit hairy towards the end because you dropped so low. And once again, Breaker, it's going to hit in 4,200 life points here for Herney Hog. Are we just going to try and wall out with the Spy? We haven't seen a knock or a Minecon or anything yet. So do you really want to put your faith in a single set monster? It looks like the answer is no. We're going to turn on Chaos here. Summon out Chaos Sorcerer, a big boy. I guess you probably banish the Breaker here. Once again, just because removing the token is really nice. And then you can finally set your Solemn Judgment. Yeah, definitely like that play. That'll come through. And then we're going to go set a monster, set a back row pass. So here, Herney Hog making the attempt to stabilize. Add a higher life point total where they're not in range of dying to Ring or Snatch Steal, like I've been saying. So I think they're in a decent spot here. But Viva Cristo still has a lot of stuff going on. But this Sork is going to be pretty difficult to deal with, especially because it honestly, at the end of the day, didn't get too much value out of this Breaker. I mean, it dealt a lot of damage, so that was good. But they never actually got to use the token. Herney Hog was able to kind of successfully play around that without it being too awkward, honestly. And then it just was around on the board to get banished by this Sork. So, nice player here. Out of Herney Hog, weathering the storm, and now trying to set up the board and turn the corner and start taking control of the game. Viva Cristo has Snatch Steal, though. That little thorn in Herney Hog's side pops up again. Do you have an out to it? MST is gone. You need like exactly a Raigeki break. Otherwise, things are going to get a little bit hairy. And no, the Snatch will resolve. Sork moves over, and we're just going to go straight to battle phase. Say, you know what? I bet you this set is Gravekeeper Spy, which it is. So Sork will kill one of them. Summon out a second one, but that will just get threatened to be banished by the Sork next turn. And then we're going to add a set monster here as well for Vive Cristo. We do know that they are on Magician of Faith in the 55. So the threat to grab Pot of Greed is super real. and not something that I'm sure Herney Hog is capable of dealing with at this point, depending on how they configure their side deck. So lots of major threats here for Herney Hog to deal with at this point of time. Their life points were saved this turn thanks to Spy floating and protecting, but this wall will not last long if you don't have an out to all of this stuff that Vive Cristo is doing. We're going to turn the kinetic to defense, sure, that makes sense as well. Can always change it back to attack next turn. Herney Hog is just going to set a back row pass, maybe resigning their Spy to death, or maybe we've got Ring or Raigeki Break to answer the Sork before main phase 1. This is a very, very important turn to see if Vive Cristo can continue to apply the pressure, or if Herney Hog can continue to force a stalemate. Also really interested in seeing what this set monster is. Because if it is Magician of Faith grabbing Pot, it might not even matter if you can answer the Sork, right? Because they're just going to pull ahead in other ways. Draw for turn, we get to main phase 1. We're going to go flip Summon the Faith here. So we're going to do this prior to the Sork. But yeah, I mean, just making sure you can resolve Pot is really nice. Do you Solemn this of your Herney Hog? There's a decent chance, probably. But yeah, Pot is going to come down really strong. Vive Cristo refilling that hand. Sork banish the Spy. Yeah, this is looking really, really good here for our warrior player. Bunch of big threats stuck here, resolving Pot for the second time this game. Slowly pulling away and outvaluing Chaos Turbo while pressuring the life points, basically having their cake and eating it too. And this is not what you want to see if you're the Turbo player. Can even successfully play around Mirror Force because there is a new back row that you haven't tested just yet. And so you can just turn this Sork to defense while pressuring in for a ton of damage here regardless. So you can even safely apply pressure here. And Herney Hog will drop down to 3550 life points. I believe, yeah, this is passing with lethal on board. Just have to turn the Sork to attack position, assuming you don't care about Mirror Force. Or I guess the Snatch Steal life actually puts them out of lethal range, but Vive Cristo still grinding this one out while applying pressure very safely, and it's looking tough here for Herney Hog. Another set monster comes down. Do we have multiple Magician of Faith both side? That'd be pretty crazy. How many pots can we recur as a warrior player? Adding another back row to the board as well. Herney Hog needs to make something happen soon, otherwise this is just going to be a slow and painful bleed out. Just can set a monster here. Still no out to the Sork coming through. We're going to end phase Dust Tornado on the old back row, hitting a Solemn Judgment. Okay, so Herney Hog, that set was there for a while, so I think they chose not to get the Snatch Steal, nor the Faith, nor the Pot of Greed, and it's just going to meet its demise at the hand of a Dust Tornado here. You know, that's one less potential answer for all of the stuff that Vive Cristo could potentially do on this follow-up turn. We got Ninja Grandmaster Sasuke, so if this is, you know, Gravekeeper Spy or something, it will not be long for this world. And we're just going to send it. We're going to say, okay, you know what, maybe you have Mirror Force. Maybe, I mean, Vive Cristo likely just has Solemn to protect against it anyway. And this is probably just GG, I think. And we're going to Torrential on the Ninja Grandmaster Flip Summon. Show me the Solemn Judgment. Yep, Solemn for game, probably. Sork attack the set. It's Gravekeeper Spy. Okay, this isn't lethal just yet, but it is very, very close. Get in for 18, get in for 1350, get in for 300. Herney Hog not going to be out of it completely, but they're going to drop down to 2100 plus the Snatch Steal life. Facing lethal on board from multiple sources. And yeah, Vive Cristo really just closing this one out very cleanly. Just at any point had plenty of back row removal to deal with stuff to make sure that most of this aggression was safe. Had the Solemn for the one time Herney Hog did have a big out to their board. And Herney Hog's going to have 4 cards to their name. Oh, we're just going to ring for game here anyway. And there it is. That is Vive Cristo on this warrior list. A little bit of flips post side, of course, but that's nothing unusual in 2025. Taking it down 2-1 against Herney Hog's Chaos Turbo. Game 1 was just kind of typical. Well, actually, Game 1 was a little bit interesting. Vive Cristo getting Herney Hog down to 2,000 life, but Herney Hog was actually up 1,000,000 cards and looked like they were about to turn the corner and stabilize. But Vive Cristo had Snatch Steal right at the death to go for a lethal push at basically the last possible chance before Herney Hog was going to take complete control of the game. Game 2, Herney Hog just did classic Chaos Turbo things, kind of wore the warrior player down and closed it out. And here in Game 3, Vive Cristo playing the value game here a little bit, saying, you know what, I can do Chaos Turbo stuff too. I can play Pot of Greed into Magician of Faith, re-grabbing Pot of Greed. I can Snatch Steal your Sork and banish all of your guys. And then, also has some big attack monsters here to apply the pressure while gaining all that advantage. It's a very solid win here for Vive Cristo against a very strong player. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I will catch you all next time.